What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to TTB Ravens Media, bringing you Ravens content every single day. If you want to see that daily Ravens content, make sure the subscribe button down below, hit the notification bell as well if you want to get notified every single time I upload a brand new video. In this video today, I'm talking about something that I was not expecting to talk about because big news happened. Joshua and I will talk about that tomorrow when we record our podcast. We'll talk about Lamar Jackson is going to be getting franchise tagged, which is it's not really a big deal at all. That was fully expected. And then also Tyler Huntley, got to give him a shout out right now, makes the Pro Bowl. We'll talk about it tomorrow on the podcast. So please send us any questions that you have that you want us to talk about there. But huge news for the Baltimore Ravens as it was announced Dave Canales is getting a second interview for the Ravens offensive coordinator position. And this is crucial because I believe he was the third coordinator that the Ravens, interviewed. And he is the first person to be brought back for a second interview. And this is coming in a day where multiple head coaches were signed. We saw Sean Payton get traded over to the Denver Broncos. And then we saw unfortunately, a defensive guy, DeMeco Ryan, end up going over to the Houston Texans. But whenever you bring in new coaching staffs, what do? They need to find their guys. They get to bring in their guys. So then the pool of offensive coordinators, it diminishes. So the Ravens are bringing back Dave Canales, and that's not saying he's a finalist. That's not saying anything crazy, but it is significant to note that they like him enough to bring him back again. I'm a fan. I am a fan of his. I didn't make a video on him initially. I've been trying to catch back up, and then I was like, oh, wow, we're getting another interview. So now I get to talk about him. Dave Canales, he is a 41-year-old. He's the quarterback coach for the Seattle Seahawks. Most notoriously, he was the wide receivers coach for the Seahawks, but most recently, quarterbacks coach for the Seahawks last season. Is that significant? I don't know. I feel like Geno Smith went from a player seen as, career backup to starting Pro Bowler, who had a great season. He played almost, a lot of people would say top 10 quarterback play this season. Canales was the new quarterbacks coach that he had. Before that, he was the pass game coordinator for 2 years with the Seattle Seahawks. He was the quarterbacks coach in 2018 to 2019, and he was the wide receivers coach from 2010 to 2017. He got his start 1 year at USC, and then Pete Carroll was like, all right, bud, you got to come over here. And Pete Carroll brought him up to the big leagues with him. So, that's something to note is he is coming from the Pete Carroll tree. And Pete Carroll, I don't know if necessarily the Pete Carroll tree is the way to describe it because Pete Carroll isn't an X's and O's coach. It's not a Bruce Arians. It's not a, Kyle Shanahan. It's not a Bill Belichick. It's not an Andy Reid. But at the same time, Pete Carroll is one of the best coaches in the NFL, without a doubt, in my opinion. Because he is somebody like he's a motivator, just like Harbaugh, but he has always consistently gotten the best out of his players. And players a lot of times leave Seattle and then they get significantly worse. And Pete Carroll, has always been able to do that. He did that at USC. He did that and he's continued to do that. People looked at that team and they thought this year, I thought it too. This is the worst team in the NFL, or at least bottom 5. And they turned it into, wow, this is a playoff team potentially. This is a team that went over 500. The Seattle Seahawks are legit because Pete Carroll was able to do that. And they weren't doing it with a great defense or a superstar quarterback. It was like, hey, here's some guys that are like, kind of not seen, and he made them be seen. But, getting more into Dave Canales and why I think this would be a really good hire, first off, is the way that the Seattle Seahawks play and kind of their philosophy coming from Pete Carroll. The Seattle Seahawks philosophy has always been establishing the run and then taking deep shots. That's what it's been underneath Pete Carroll. That's what Russell Wilson killed teams doing. It wasn't dink and dunk, quick throw, quick throw, quick throw. It was hand the ball off to your bell cow back, no matter whether it was Marshawn Lynch or it was Chris Carson or now it's Kenneth Walker. It was hand the ball off to your guys, run it, And then you're going to hit that hard play action. And you're going to hit your guys deep. And they always were able to have, legitimate deep threats ever since Pete Carroll came in, and if you want to look at, even back in 2010, their wide receivers, there weren't anybody that was just crazy good or anything like that. But they came in and it was like, oh, here's our wide receivers. It's, you know, Dion Butler, Ben Obanu, Golden Tate, that might have been his rookie year. And then Mike Williams was their main wide receiver. And then you kind of see as, the Seahawks develop and they start getting, especially once they got Russ, then it just became like, okay, we are going to take shots. And then they brought in Doug Baldwin, and they drafted him. They brought in Sidney Rice. They brought in, they kept developing Golden Tate to kind of become this unique player in their offense. But it was pound the rock, and then it was take those deep shots when you have those opportunities. And that's the exact thing that I've talked about with the Baltimore Ravens that I feel like they need to do, because they can pound the rock 100%. And Russell Wilson's rookie year, just going over the players that they had, at wide receiver for him, it was Golden Tate, Sidney Rice, Ben Obanu, Doug Baldwin, and Jermaine Kearse. I believe it was his rookie year as well. The Ravens can pound the rock. They can run the ball. They can control the clock. The problem has been getting explosive plays in the passing game deep down the field. And whether that's wide receiver development or play calling, it could absolutely be a combination of both. I think it is a combination of both. We would be bringing in a wide receivers coach, a predominantly a wide receivers coach / quarterback coach / pass game specialist that is coming from a system that knows, hey, we want to control the ball and control the clock first. I feel like that's what the Ravens are going for because they have that type of defense. And then, you see eventually they end up getting Tyler Lockett. They're able to develop Tyler Lockett brilliantly. They're able to develop DK Metcalf brilliantly. And the Seattle Seahawks have been able to just get weapons. Every time they lose something, they're able to get something back. No matter who it is. It's like, oh, they miss out on, oh, this guy's getting a little bit older. Doug Baldwin. Then it was like, oh, Tyler Lockett's able to step up. And it's just like always seems to be someone there. And Dave Canales has always kind of been there, with those wide receivers and with that passing game to make sure that they were competent around Russell Wilson. I think he has a really good resume. I think he's coming from a really good system. If we hired him, I would not be upset whatsoever. And this would really be his first big opportunity. And again, he's 41 years old. He is young, but I'm fully willing to take that risk of hiring a young guy that's been with a system that just lost a franchise quarterback and they were just as good, if not better, than what they were with Russell Wilson. That's unbelievable. And he was the quarterback's coach right when Russell Wilson left, right after Wilson left. They were like, hey, you want to be our quarterback's coach? It's like, yeah. Boom. What was thought to be maybe the worst team in the NFL turned into a competent and almost dominant at times offense. Like if Kenneth Walker hadn't gotten hurt, like who knows how good this team could have been. Because if you look at, just this year, their passing stats, 3,934 yards passing, 30 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. That's really good numbers. And then they were running the ball very well. Kenneth Walker, 1,000 yards, but he only started in 11 games, 9 touchdowns. Bringing in Dave Canales would be somebody that I feel like understands what the Ravens are trying to do. I really like this, potential. He, again, this isn't saying the Ravens are finalizing a deal or, putting him in the final group. The only thing this is he's the first person to get that second interview, which I think is big. Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe for daily Ravens content, and I'll see all of you again tomorrow with a Trust the Bank podcast episode.